no sé. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here on this final day of the academic session at the ATBC 2025. It has been a wonderful week, and we are truly appreciate your presence and participation throughout the conference. I know it's very early in the morning, it's the last day, so thank you very much for being here. We have some few announcements. Number one, there are still 10 spots available for the field trip to Gilanakit's cave. If you are interested, please stop by the Chimali booth in the lobby to reserve and pay. If you already signed up but haven't paid yet, make sure to complete your payment today. Number two, at 12:10 p.m., we will take the official group photo. Please join us in the garden at the entrance of the convention center. After the photo, you can go directly to lunch. Number three, the closing ceremony starts at 5:20 p.m., followed by the conference banquet. To enter the banquet, please bring your conference bandage or show your WOBA QR code. You will need it to get in. Tonight, we will have shuttle service from the convention center to downtown and to Hotel Misión de Los Ángeles at 9, 10, and 9:11 p.m. and 1 a.m. 1 a.m., wow. Thank you, Miguel. Certificates of participation and presentation will be sent digitally after the conference, and we hope you enjoy the celebration and have a great time at the party. All right, we are going to start. So this debate aims to answer the question, can agroecology help to achieve human well-being and conservation in the tropics? To answer this question, we will have two agroecologists with somewhat divergent ideas regarding the current concept and practice of agroecology in Latin America. Their experience comes from Colombia and Mexico, where there have been advances in agroecology in certain aspects, but there are still great challenges in both dominant agriculture in the tropics and biodiversity conservation. This session will focus on the differences between agroecology as a science and as a practice, and it also expected to contribute to the great debate on alternatives to the convergence between production and conservation in tropical ecosystems. The structure of the debate is as follows. First, we will have the general position of the participants by a 10-minute presentation. Then we will have 2 rounds to contrast ideas from the presentations. After that, we are going to take questions from the audience. Presenters will have 20 minutes total to answer the questions. Like the last intervention, each presenter, we will try to make a concluding message. I want to present Dr. Inge Armbrecht. She is a professor at Universidad del Valle in Colombia and a leading researcher in tropical agroecology and biodiversity. Her work focuses on the role of insects, particularly ants, in ecosystem functioning, soil health, and sustainable agriculture. With a strong foundation in ecology, she has explored how land use change and agricultural practices affect biodiversity and ecosystem services in tropical landscape. Dr. Armbrecht is known for combining rigorous ecological research with applied perspectives, offering critical insights into the complexities of biodiversity conservation in working landscapes. Her contributions have helped shape agroecological thinking in Colombia and across Latin America. Thank you, Inge.
So,
wait a minute. I'm going to present Hugo, and then we...
Sorry.
And then we also have Dr. Hugo Perales Rivera. He is a professor and researcher at El Colegio de la Frontera Sur in Mexico. His work focuses on agroecology, agrobiodiversity, and the conservation of traditional agricultural systems, particularly in indigenous and rural communities. With a broad background in ecology and extensive experience in participatory research, Dr. Perales has contributed significantly to understand how smallholder farming systems maintain genetic diversity, especially in maize. He is widely recognized for his interdisciplinary approach, bringing ecological science, rural development, and traditional knowledge to explore sustainable alternatives for agriculture and biodiversity conservation in tropical and subtropical regions. Thank you, Hugo, for being here. All right, so now we are going to start. You have 10 minutes for your initial presentation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for being here so early. So I am going to focus, or what I identify the three main points of these aspects of interest of this debate: agroecology and its goals, agroecology and biodiversity, and agroecology and social movements. So you know that we have a big problem, biodiversity problem, that it is related with agriculture. Industrial agriculture has taken almost the whole system in the world, around the world, from many decades ago. 7 decades, this is the model that has been dominated and almost received almost all the agricultural research support, economic support. But the alternative is, of course, agroecology, which is what we are discussing today. But agroecology is not a new term. This term was used first almost a century ago. As you can see, many books have been written about the subject from many people. And there are different aspects that we need to clarify first about agroecology. So what is agroecology? I chose three kind of definitions. One is, it seeks to understand the natural laws of agroecosystems to design and operate agroecosystems. So we need this ecological knowledge to understand better agroecosystems. Also, it is a scientific discipline, but the approach to food systems has recently been escalated to other dimensions, as you can see here in these words from Altieri and Toledo. Agroecology seeks to provide a scientific, methodological, technological basis for a worldwide agrarian revolution, in the basis of strategies such as understanding the role of biodiversity in agroecosystems, efficiency in techniques, energy, internal cycles, social construction of science, knowledge, social justice, and food sovereignty. That means it is involving a lot of dimensions of the human well-being and biodiversity. But I could summarize this in three connotations of agroecology. The first one is agroecology as a science. The core of agroecology is a science, no? In terms of crop production aspects, etc., as a scientific approach. The second is as a practice. It is related to movements, social movements, innovation, but also sharing traditional and indigenous knowledge and improving this kind of knowledge in the scientific way. And the third one, which is a dimension, is very complex, is the social political movement. Recently, for me, it's a more recent approach, and it involves environmental, social, economical, ethical, psychological, food sovereignty, and public policies. So there are other practical alternatives that are enhancing and helping agroecology. For example, organic, but what is the I am, in parentheses, writing some, like the caveats for these approaches. But organic agriculture not always challenge monocultures and could be only profit-oriented. Is not always, but could be. Input substitution makes farmer dependent on external inputs. Fair trade have problems of agro-export schemes and does not necessarily prioritize food sovereignty. The biodynamic agriculture, in which the crop is conceived like an organism, like a living organism. It is more focused on a local scales and maybe is ignoring all other dimensions, social relationships. Regenerative agriculture that has been very famous in the present moment, or I would call it restoration agroecology, with these practices that enhance the function and biodiversity, but there are no clear relationships with well-being and social equity. So now let's turn into the second point that I'm going to present here. When you homogenize, it is not working, but when the landscapes are homogenized or simplified because of industrial agriculture, then you can see this arrow is increasing in intensification. You are losing parts of the biodiversity that could be, many of them could be functionally important, no? So for conceptual reasons, it is good to divide the diversity into plant, the one that the farmer is incorporating intentionally into his system, and the associated biodiversity, which comes regardless the will of the farmer, and the industrial agriculture. It is much more simplified than the agroecological, so different associated biodiversity will come with each kind of model, no? But the problem is the second one is more complex than the first one. Is simplified, the reductionist approach to agricultural system make this like more simple, but also with more challenges. So why agroecology would enhance biodiversity? There are many reasons. One, the agriculture matrix connects natural areas or reserves in most of the terrestrial world. Agroecosystems are also habitats by themselves. The biota could or could not migrate throughout them. Third, the agricultural matrix dynamics are under human control and obey social reasons, laws. Instead of the evolution goes in a kind of dimension different from social and political law. But the problem is that any political, socio-economical or political decision changes landscapes around the world and decide millions of lives. So, two inspiring books for these arguments of biodiversity are Coffee Agroecology and Nature's Matrix. They argue that most habitats in the world are already fragmented. We can do nothing about that. They are already fragmented. And local extinctions occur even in the largest protected areas of the world. So, because it has another dimension. It's different from our dimension. So they argue that migration maintains population as meta-populations and meta-communities, and this is the way we can preserve biodiversity. So there are different ways in which we can, oh, wow, it's working. Okay, so the uppermost is turning from simple to complex agroecosystems around or surrounding the forest reserves that are in black. And you can see that as we improve the systems, we can get more arrows, more wild biota moving around the landscapes, and making this important genetic mixing in the populations. And this one maintains a lot of the intensified agroecosystems, but maybe the arrows stay the same. For our arrows, here we increase the arrows of movement. But one thing that I need to clarify here in this discussion is that agroecology does not grow at expense of natural forests. It is clear that we need at least 20 to 25% of natural and semi-natural systems around the world. But the other aspect is that the biodiversity could have ecological functions important that help the farmer. So we could study that. We don't know many things about what is going on, but it is important. So if we want to bend the curve, we need, bending the curve is the yellow one. If we start making more biodiversity friendly, the agroecosystems, we need to take very seriously agriculture. Instead of going down, this is what WWF from the 1970s, to maintain biodiversity that was. The last movement, the last one is social movement. I have only two.
Sorry, you have only one.
No, I know. I know that I have two slides. Agroecology has the potential for well-being through social movements. Social movements as Via Campesina are moving millions and millions of peasants for well-being. And the Sin Tierra movement as well. Campesino and Campesino movement is spreading widely as well as agroecology, but be careful. There is a warning. A word of caution, because all this is in the context of a powerful neoliberal economic model. And finally, before saying thank you, we are immersed in the epistemology, the way we approach through the knowledge we have, but pseudoscience and beliefs could be always permeating what is going. So agroecology is not just a set of techniques. It is a big upside down. We need to change completely our way to relate to nature, and it is tightly armed to the social system and social constructs and beliefs. So thank you very much to for you to being here, for Quetzalcóatl, who organized this, and of course, Hugo, for being here and helping us to understand better the problematic. Thank you.
Thank you, Inge. Thank you very much for keeping the time also. And I think you set a very nice floor to start the discussion. So it's
Thank you.
Hugo's turns.
So we were tasked with this question, and my answer is a short answer, yes. I'm an agroecologist, and I believe in agroecology. But I am worried that science and technology are being sidelined by agroecology discourse. I think it requires a balance between the political dominance of the discourse nowadays with the scientific backing we have and with technical offers and not just possibilities. I understand that narratives are very important. The agroecology has had a very important narrative and very successful, but it's been too simplistic and many things are improving. This harm the discourse and mislead the general public, in my opinion. And I think it's unwise to sideline science and technology in this sense. I want to state that I understand modern agriculture has many problems. I'm not here to defend modern agriculture or industrial-style agriculture. And I understand also that the description I'm going to make is not universal. It's limited to Mexico, Latin America, and maybe Africa and other tropical places, but not exactly everywhere. So I'll just go briefly this because Inge has already talked about it, but it's obvious that agroecology started as a science and it will keep on as a science. This is not going to change. But in the last decades, it has moved into what is called agroecological practices, and it has moved into a change in a matter of changing the food system, the whole food system, basically against the industrial model as an idea. No? I want to state that there's no consensus on what constitutes an agroecological approach, and it is hard to pinpoint what is agroecological and what is not agroecological. And this is not something that I am saying. This is being stated by a high-level panel of experts from FAO when they were tasked to study it, no? And to present something. So we have a very successful narrative. The narrative is based on mimicking nature as a benign force that we can do what nature is doing, and that's the way forward. And we have another successful narrative around simplification. And this has gone to the point of view that we have artificial ecosystems in agriculture, okay, and that require constant human intervention, as if any agricultural system doesn't require constant human intervention. I don't understand, but all of them require. So what do we want to mimic? A mature state of succession, high biodiversity, balance of nature, resilience, closed ecosystems. What do we want to really mimic? And the issue is that agriculture is too variable, extremely variable in species, environment, social conditions, to have simple generalizations being applied for every place. And the other issue is that agriculture has criteria internal to itself. We don't care only to do in an abstract way what we should do in agriculture. We want produce. We want it to be relatively cheap. No? So we have a different criteria of what do we want to do. Another problem here with these ideas is that we know that evolution is very effective for molecules, and it's effective for species. But we don't have evidence that ecosystems are organized to maximize productivity. And we are thinking that if we increase biodiversity, it will work out. And this balance of nature idea, I concur with Coudington. It's a pre-theoretic. It's nature as a beneficial force, and it's unjustified to use it just like that. No? Agroecological principles have been changing. They started in the agricultural environment, the agroecosystems. Then they moved into the social economic side, and then they moved into the whole system. And this is not bad in my opinion, but this complicates what we're doing and what we are going to or trying to say. And the agroecosystems have been subsumed suddenly into the food system, and they're starting to be just not well focused. No? Another problem we have in agroecology is that we state that we have agroecological principles and agroecological practices, and this is a mixed mash thing that we don't have clarified. We have different types of principles, Some are explicative, others give directions, others are normative. And I would dare to say that most successful agroecological practices are anti-date agroecology. It's only a matter that agroecologists just insisting that they should be kept. And I assure you, in agronomy, when a practice works, we keep it. When it doesn't work, we change it. It's not a matter that we don't want to do cover crops. It's a matter that sometimes we cannot do cover crops, no? And for example, it's very easy to say, do a closed system and cycle nutrients, but how do you do it sometimes? For example, in maize, are beans enough for maize? We don't know it. We have a long history of talking that milpa is the adequate production system, complex, and beans supplying nitrogen to maize. Yeah, but how much? Is it enough? We have very low productivity in some soils. Can we manage these soils with very low productivity and all the rainfall season being used in maize? Green manure is very effective in some places, and I've worked in some of those, and suddenly, snakes. We cannot manage snakes in the cover crop. People don't want to go to do it. They don't want to work. No? And this has moved into governmental policy in Mexico. And governmental policy recommending agricultural practices that are really not substantiated. There's no evidence for many of this. And for example, you promote agroecological practices for soils with things that don't have enough material for the plant to live. So you prohibited glyphosate. It's not that I'm defending glyphosate, but you prohibit it without giving any real response of how to do it. You only say possibilities. It's like a textbook, possibilities, that you have to work out. Excuse me. And one other thing, it has gone into extreme ideas like agrohomeopathy. We don't have evidence of homeopathy for persons, less for plants, less for animals. We don't have any evidence that this is true. And scientific institutions are promoting this. So we come into the political side, and agroecology is now discussed as a disputed territory. I agree that this is a legitimate position, but I think it's too partial because it underestimates the independence that science and technology has in the system. It's not only politics. Politics intervenes. Politics has a place, but it's not only politics that determines what we will be doing. And this disputed territory has moved into transdiscipline and unorthodox sciences. Call me old-fashioned, but I don't take that. And what do we do with an agroecology without agronomy? We are getting into that point. There's a lot of people talking as agroecologists and don't know agronomy and don't know biology. Can you really do that? Okay. And there's a growing confusion between agroecology and alternative agricultures. Organic agriculture has some scientific backing, but organic agriculture is not amenable to science. It doesn't matter what science says. Organic agriculture has its principles, and that's it. Other forms also have them. And then you can go into many forms of agriculture that are not amenable to science, and they are called agroecological practices. So, to end my first section, I would say yes.
Hugo, I'm sorry, time is over.
Yeah, so it's the last one.
The first,
it's a closing. I think that we have become enamored with our discourse and the success of the discourse. I think it's good have a nice narrative, but I don't think we can solve everything with agroecology, and we shouldn't try to do it. We should try to collaborate in what we can do to solve the problems, but we are not solving the whole world. And I think narratives, evidence, and the responsibility of the scientific academia are important here. Science has to say its part and not renounce to say its part. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we have some arguments here, but I would like to discuss more about the importance of diversity to increase the stability, productivity, and resilience of agroecosystems. Because I think these are some of the processes that we are promoting. We want to change the way that we do agriculture in the tropics. So, Inge, could you say something?
Okay, yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Hugo. Very interesting, your points. Well, we took biodiversity like a core of this discussion because this is for interest for all the people who here, also because it's very important for agroecology. But what I would say is that as agroecology has been turning more complex, we need new approaches without leaving science, because this is important, and your points are important because the political and social and economic and well-being, when we get into the human dimension, everything gets much more complex than just the agroecosystem. The agroecosystem is very complex. Nature is complex. Everything is complex. So what, from your points and regarding well-being and biodiversity, first, we need a conversation from the traditional, indigenous, practical, because you say, when you abandon this practice, if it doesn't work, that is the way people from thousands of years before have been doing. How was agriculture in the first place developed 13,000 years ago? With practice, with traditional practice, doing things don't work, this work, and domesticating plants, animals, whatever, and integrating systems, and observing and understanding nature. That's why we have agriculture right now. So there is a conversation, a dialogue. Now, the scientific approach also is a modest approach. It doesn't have the truth. It's working with what is going on, hypothesis, and putting this hypothesis into proof. So we need this conversation from the traditional knowledge and with science. Now, biodiversity. It is not kind of recipes. The industrial agriculture and this approach, reductionist approach, is telling us like recipes. Do this, the third day you apply this toxic, and the second day this other toxic. And everybody, yes, great. Very easy to do it. But understanding biodiverse complex system needs much more science and much more financing. That is my point. Because we don't have recipes about biodiversity, and you are right, Hugo. We don't have recipes. We need to understand systems. What happens? We have patterns in ecology, like food webs, like recycling, how life has been here in this world for about, let's see, maybe 2 billion years, 3 billion years in this planet, no? How it evolves, and it is sustainable. We know that life is sustainable because we are here and it evolved for many million years. We need to understand nature, but it is not easy because we are, our mind is not working in different schemes. We need sight, we have certain constraints to understand nature. But we are getting better in that. And I think, and I really believe, that is agroecology. Agroecology is nursed by other scientists, by other sciences, by other practices. But it is agroecology as a science which can give us the way. But it has many problems, of course, many problems, because when this becomes a discourse, yes, to convince people, and then you can get this danger to be simplifying and trying to look for recipes. So these recipes about biodiversity are very dangerous because you cannot okay, people like recipes, no? Very simple, but you cannot give these recipes to the people because we need what is going on in each system, where the winds blow, how is the topography, which kind of soils, what was the history of that place. And this is the traditional and peasants' knowledge. They know how their system are. And the scientists, and also, of course, if we could get the people who are producing food also become like scientists, also to understand their system better, this dialogue is very, very important. So we cannot say that automatically the biodiversity will improve ecosystem function. It is difficult to say that. Yes, it is difficult because it depends on the system. So we have ecological patterns, but we need to check out each of the systems to understand it better and produce the better practice. So we need universities, research centers all throughout the world, all throughout the countryside. This is what I would say.
Thank you very much, Inge. Hugo?
Thank you. I have another section of the presentation.
You were prepared already.
Yeah, well, we had two subjects, and the other one was biodiversity. So, excuse me. So, basically, we will agree because my position will be it's specific. Agriculture is too complex and has too many differences that we cannot do general proposals, simple general proposals. So this is virtually a matter of dogma. I'm sorry that I disagree a little bit with Inge in this because it's being pushed as you only increase agrobiodiversity and things will solve out. No, this is very commonly said, and it is more commonly said by NGOs and other organizations that do common work, but it's based on the scientists that are saying the same things. No? And there's several hypotheses in this area. So I'll present a little bit of data. First, I want to say we want to mimic only high diversity ecosystems. We know that high diversity ecosystems have very low net productivity. Do we really want low net productivity? Is this what we're seeking? No. Agriculture, there's another hypothesis that agriculture is mimicking low diversity ecosystems that have very high productivity. And we have some evidence in the cereals in the Middle East. They were almost monospecific plant environments, ecosystems, and they were maintained by stress, no? One way or another, but they were natural, and then they were mature monocrops, even though Inge disagreed with this, but they have been condemned. There's a lot of discourse that monocrops are almost evil, no? But for example, in a classic problem in Mexico, again, maize, bean, and squash, pole beans are the classic way of doing maize, beans, and squash. And people don't want to do pole beans anymore. Some do, but most don't, because it has a lot of labor involved. The same goes for squash. How many tender squash can we eat? Very little. Very little. You cannot finish one hectare of squash with one family. It's impossible. You have to move it into seed. Seed is very nutritious, but it has a lot of work. There's no machinery in the field. So Why do you do squashes when you cannot process squashes in some way that you can keep them? No? Even in the 1970s, milpa with maize, beans, and squash was less than 10%. No? And we don't really have answers for this and to move it on. No? And we know that the advantages of polycropping are not uniform. They're not uniform starting from the experimental setting, no? From how you do the experiments. So, okay, you can do it this way and that other, but you have to take care. No? And the science rarely include very high technical conditions. And we want productivity, absolute productivity, not only land equivalent ratios. No? So we have to take care with these kinds of issues that are happening, and it's not the same for all the crops. No? Regarding ecosystem services, for example, this is a meta-study in coffee, 2015 studies, most neutral. There's some positive, but we have to look for the positive and what's happening there. What are the conditions? And we don't really know them, and we cannot export them clearly, no? Functional ecosystem, biodiversity. It's the same as another issues. It's not systematic, it's difficult, and most of the problems comes in yields and things like that, no? Management, agricultural side of management. Resilience. One thing I wanted to know, of 193 articles that were selected for studying for resilience in biodiversity, only 63 could be chosen, and only 16 had numbers involved, have measurements involved. So we are talking about resilience without doing it, and obviously some relations are positive, some are negative, some have no effect. We need to progress in all this stuff. So we don't know how much agrodiversity we need. I personally work with agrobiodiversity, and we cannot make general recommendations. And monocrops have their place. I am an agronomist by training, and I know the virtues of monocrops. They have virtues for us as workers, as people that work in agriculture. So diversity is important. We have to keep on working. We have to keep on understanding the process, but we cannot just tell the people, just increase the biodiversity and things will work out.
Thank you, Hugo. So now I would like to move to another very important topic that you, Inge, present at the beginning, that is the agroecology has a contribution for biodiversity conservation at landscape scale through the creation of corridors and the various types of alternative agriculture as concrete practices for farming families to achieve conservation at landscape scale. What's going on there?
Okay, yes. Well, I want first to say that it is not a recipe, as you said, Hugo. It's the contrary. Talking about recipes, biodiversity will contribute and behave so well, all the dimensions will improve. That is completely false. And it is a reductionist approach to say that agroecology, that production is the main goal of any agroecosystem. It is multidimensional. And we really need to get rid of this idea. More or less 40% of the food in the world is thrown to the basket. It's thrown. So why this running and running to produce more and more and more, depleting all the soils, wildlife, everything, for what? So we need to understand better the multidimensionality of agriculture. I understand that being reductionist is more comfortable, but we need to get more complex approaches, and we need everybody involved. Now, at the landscape level, yes, but the quality doesn't mean that you have to plant trees everywhere. Quality of the matrix could be in time and could be in space. So you can rotate, you can design a very complex and a heterogeneous landscape. You would be crazy if you would say, no, I'm going to incorporate some trees inside with my maize, with my corn. No, it's crazy. We need to design, and we need science for that. It's not recipes. So that's why, yes, of course, we need more biodiversity. It's the only way to really to get a better quality matrix. And not only biodiversity, but less toxics. We are completely changing the nitrogen cycle in the world because of this Haber-Bosch phenomenon for producing the fertilizers, the chemical fertilizers. And we are incorporating that, and we are creating a big problem throughout the world because of industrial agriculture. We need to understand many things. We are not so dogmatic that we are not going to understand all the physiology everything that we know that has, because of the industrial agriculture, many scientists have uncovered many of the problems, the things of nature. But it's not recipes, but biodiversity. If we are to survive in this planet, we need to maintain biodiversity. And agriculture, agroecology is for me, is the way, because it is not only at the local, at the plot level, but also we need to change the way we think. We need to change the system. Now, maybe it is impossible. Maybe it will never occur. Or yes, but we hope it does. But it is a great challenge. Complexity is very, very difficult. But of course, Hugo, we never, at least the way I see agroecology, never gives recipes.
Thank you.
This is only an opinion, but I think that recipes are important in agriculture. When I was a student, I remember that I didn't like my professors that gave us recipes. And you do this, and you do that, and you do that, and I rebelled against this. But by way of time, when you go to the fields, you do find farmers want recipes. They want you to tell them, this is going to work, this is convenient. But how do we give recipes? Doing the scientific work. If we don't do the scientific work, we cannot give any recipes. So this is our job. Our job as scientists is trying all the alternatives and find the alternatives that are working, that we can recommend as scientists. And we are not doing this in agroecology because agroecology doesn't give recipes, because the system is very complex. Yes, it's complex, but in its complexity, we have to work piece by piece, one place, another place, change this, change that. Mm-hmm. And I understand the reluctance of giving recipes, but I think it's also one of the factors that is creating this confusion between agroecology and all the alternative agricultures, because they have recipes. All the alternative agricultures come and tell you, you do this, you do that. So now agroecology is all mixed up with alternative agricultures because we don't have the capacity to give recipes, to do specific recommendations. So it's not a matter that I want to overemphasize the reductionist point, but the reductionist side of science is inevitable. We need to do it, even if we try to be more holistic and systemic and whatever. That would be my comment.
Inge wants to say something.
No, just to say that this top-down approach for knowledge is the problem. We think we are the owners of the truth. We are in the laboratories saying all the recipes for the poor, ignorant campesinos and all that. But really, we need this dialogue. If the campesino is there, and then there are spaces where they can share their knowledge. For example, I saw in the campesino sharing knowledge, they are sharing their practices. Oh, I made this lombricompost better, it worked better than the gallinaza and whatever. And the scientists there sharing and understanding and trying to understand the system, then you don't need this, the recipes will come. So I think that the dialogue is, we need like a horizontal approach to knowledge. So that problem, I think, Hugo, would be better solved. And people do the things, but we need more support for the field. We have a great problem. The new generations, they feel humiliated to be working in the field. And the field is empty of people and full of machines, airplanes, whatever.
Drones.
So drones, very high technological, more production to throw it into the garbage. So I think that we need to reinvigorate the field and reinvigorate the knowledge, maybe from the grandfathers, where whatever people that still are in the, but those need political decisions.
Thank you, Inge.
Yeah, I want to answer because I obviously disagree that it is only a top-down procedure. And I want to state that it's different when you want to do work in the world and change it than when you're doing science. When you want to change something in the world, you have to talk with people and you have to get into arrangements and negotiations and whatever you need. And you have to take into account their knowledge and how they think and what they understand of what you think. But this doesn't mean we renounce to science. And science has its procedures. So we can talk with, I'm an ethnobotanist by training, but as an ethnobotanist, I can say not everything that people are saying is correct. And we as scientists have the responsibility to do the work, the scientific work, to see if what they're saying is true or not. But we are not doing it because we take it as a granted that they understand. And if you go further on the details of ethnobotanical knowledge or other types of knowledge in that sense, well, everybody proceeds with the same ways. Trial and error and getting conclusions from that. But science has theory. It's a trial and error done by many persons and concentrated in one place. This traditional knowledge doesn't have this characteristic in many places. It's weakened. It's not systematic. They don't have instruments to understand some kinds of phenomena. They don't have theory to understand some kind of phenomena. And I don't understand this position of agroecology that renounces to sciences from the inside. It's almost like we don't have what to say because we don't have recipes, because we only have general ideas, because we only have you should do's, no? But not any specific way of solving the problems. And this, I insist, is the part that the scientific community has to work out. We have to get, I agree we have to have dialogue with local people, but we have to work out if what their perceptions and their ideas are really functional and work for everybody, or work in other places, or work in the community. No?
Okay, thank you very much. We are going to involve you in this conversation, so it's time for comments or questions, or okay? All right. Wait. Keep the hand. Simonetta, Berta, then the green the shirt, and then you the blue.
The yellow, the blue, and the yellow.
Yeah, and okay. And the yellow, and the gray, and that's it. Sorry. Oh, maybe the blue. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Gracias. Okay, I'm going to be very quick because there's a long queue. Thank you very much. This was fantastic. I really enjoyed both positions, and the discussion is crucial. So I just wanted to ask you whether you think that we have something to learn in this discussion from the already existing and long-standing discussions that have very many parallels in medicine. In medicine, this has been going on for a very, very long time, longer than in agroecology. Who knows how much? When do you need to go to the doctor? When do you need to pay attention to what the doctor said? And when do we need to perform preventing medicine? When do we pay attention to grandmothers? All of this has been very long explored in science within medicine. So I'd like to hear your thoughts about this. Thank you.
I would like to start,
Okay.
excuse me,
Of course.
because
Go.
I think that medicine is almost like a sister thing to agriculture. We proceed in the same ways. We proceed by science and by art. We cannot do only science. We have to do both. And when I was taught in the university, they call it art and science. It's always an art and a science. You do your best on the science side, and you take your risk in decisions, because you cannot have everything under control on science, on the science side, because it's too complex a system. It has too many variables. Agriculture has too many variables and will always have too many variables, even if we try to simplify. I think we can learn from science. And this discussion from medicine, excuse me, this discussion of evidence-based medicine. I don't know how much have you heard about it, but it's very prevalent, because there's a lot of medicine that is not evidence-based. No?
Inge?
Well, I agree that it is a sister, but you know, from all our humanity evolution, we have many women using the herbs, the weeds, whatever, and proving by themselves and all that. Medicine evolved with that, also the shamans and sometimes kind of spiritual rituals and all that. But I think that the diversity of ecosystems was crucial to develop medicine. Now, when the industrial agriculture took the system, then you take the main molecule that works, no, and you patent that, and then you have to pay money for all the pills you take. So these have been, for me, I think, it has been part of the depletion of biodiversity is also that we already, no, you cannot use this herb, this is not, or if you use it, you are taking risk that it is patented and you have problems. So this is another approach that conceptually is not good. It's not good for biodiversity, and it's better if we recover a lot of this traditional indigenous knowledge, but also, of course, with science, proving whatever, what you said, I agree. But the only thing that I don't agree is that, we are the scientists that are working for you. No, why not? The people become scientists by themselves. We need more science. I know many in my university, they have special requirements for indigenous people, for palenques, negros, whatever. They go make their studies and they go back to their community and apply science. So the same people who are producing science, medicine, etc., could be also scientists. We don't need to be separated from the other people. I think so. No? Not everybody, but...
Quick comment. It depends on what you're talking about as science. Science has a body of knowledge. You have to participate in this body of knowledge. Science has a body of methods agreed in the community. You have to participate in these methods. And if you don't do this, you're not actually doing science. You're creating knowledge, and I respect traditional knowledge. There's no argument of not respecting traditional knowledge, but that's not necessarily science.
But the contrary as well.
All right. Okay, thank you. Berta.
Okay, I will try to be quick, but it's difficult. So I will continue with the metaphor of medicine, because in medicine right now, coming from science, I was diagnosed with cancer, and my oncologist, scientific, set up in Germany a transdisciplinary team, which also includes acupuncture and traditional herbs from traditional Chinese medicine. And this is included already. And I have to say that that was the aspect that relieved me from the huge pain I have. So it was all scientific knowledge, chemotherapy, surgeries, radio, pills, and that. And that was the only thing. And with meditation to live out the pain. So having that in mind, I'm with Inge that we need that. And also they asked me, I was an actor there. So they allow me to be empowered in the conversation. So it was the local knowledge of my body, and they trust what I was saying. So that for me was the dialogue with the indigenous communities. So it's happening right now in Western medicine science to include other knowledge systems. But my question goes into the direction. One of the principles of agroecology, as you presented, Hugo, and also Ingrid, is fairness. So how can we be fair if we do not include, this is called procedural justice and recognitional justice, the knowledge systems and the worldviews of those who are doing agroecology on the ground?
Inge, Hugo?
I agree. We have to include them when we want to change the world or transform the world. But it depends on what we're talking. And if you have evidence that acupuncture works or whatever other procedure works, that's evidence-based. I'm not against evidence-based whatever. We have evidence, we can proceed and we can recommend and we can take it. It depends on the specifics sometimes.
But to gain the evidence, we need opportunity to allow to do unorthodox science, transdisciplinary science, because how otherwise we gain the evidence that it works?
Well, you have the signal, the idea, the hypothesis that derives from what you're saying, and you try it out outside, wherever, on the conditions that you decide, and you see if it works out and you can recommend or not.
I will respond with 3 words. I think equity is a base for agroecology, are very important principle. Women, the racist approach, because it is real. There are a lot of biases, even in science. Yeah. And you come from that university, your paper maybe but I agree that we cannot be permeated by pseudoscience. It is important, but we also need more equity, social justice. Otherwise, science will not advance the same. Equity in all the aspects. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Inge. I think
Thank you for the lively debate. I mean, I think it has really reflected a lot of the debates I've heard among the participants throughout the conference. I sort of talk to folks who have a bit more of a social science or a political ecology background, and they say, oh, the biophysical scientists, they just want to measure everything, and they're, focused on sort of technocratic approaches, and then the biophysical scientists will complain about the folks from a social science background. And I wonder, the framing of this is as a debate, as opposed to like a dialogue or something like that. And I wonder if you can offer any sort of concrete, practical approaches that will allow agroecology as an academic discipline to hold these tensions and to hold these contrasting views without allowing it to tear itself apart, because that is something that I've seen in certainly other social movements as well as other academic disciplines.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, agroecology is so complex that it could tear apart, be co-opted by the other green parts. So like kind of putting band-aids to a tumor, and we know everything must change upside down, but we don't know how. Because financing is most, like 95% of all financing is posted on in the same scheme. So when you say, organic agriculture, then you are doing the same, but for profits. The great problem of the food system is, one, it can help if you own the food systems in a certain way, you can submit the people from other places. And these have been known by many of the countries that are in this moment dominating the world. Because people, when they are hungry, they get submitted. And agro-exports, a piece of food that you eat has traveled 1,200 miles. Each piece of food that the North American eats. So all this travel and all that makes very difficult. So really, agroecology is very and it is being like transformed, like distortioned. So we need to maintain the focus, and I agree in certain aspects from you, Hugo, that we really need to focus on science and all that, but we need also political and economic transformation of the whole world.
Well, I don't really have a good solution for this.
Nobody.
My only issue is, as I am saying, is we should not go too far ahead of what we know. And we had a bad experience with COVID, no? Scientists were accused that they don't know the answers to COVID, no? Sometimes that's the reality, and that's the reality of agroecology also. We don't know all the answers. We have to work them out, no? So from my perspective, we have to work out, we have to do our work, and not go too much ahead of what we actually know. No?
All right. The colleague in yellow, I think, or
no?
I think it was the blue.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, I enjoy very much this conversation. My training is in agriculture, and I'm a practicing ecologist, not an agroecologist. So what I would like to say that my father did agriculture 100 years ago, and I'm familiar with the lecture notes that talked about the Norfolk 4, the rotation. So basically what it is, that maybe it's going to the first question about biodiversity and agroecology. So what we perceive ecologists as biodiversity, for the farmer, it is weeds, it is pests. Okay, so this is one issue. Another issue is that this perception of the importance of biodiversity in productivity, it sort of came into the fore with the experiments that Michel Loro started in the early 90s. And then the ecologists started sort of pushing it onto agriculture. I'm not saying that I see that chemical agriculture is not as something that we can continue, but I think the ecologists and the agronomists should really understand each other, because this is a big issue as far as I can see, that one sees the same issue in a different way from the other. Thank you.
I agree.
Me too. No, yeah, I agree.
I'm also an agronomist and an ecologist formally, but I stayed in agroecology.
Just, and then you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for the conversation. I identify as an agroecologist. I studied with Miguel Altieri, and I have also situated myself in the co-production of knowledge. And what I've learned is that, science is not objective because it's situated in a body who is asking the questions. So if we're not asking questions with the farmers, the answers that we do through science won't be that relevant for the people that are producing our food and for the systems. I hear Hugo saying, maybe it's important if you want to change the world, and I'm curious if you don't want to change the world. And who are we changing the world with, and who are we making science with? So it does matter how we ask the questions, what kind of questions we ask, because that determines. We can use the process, the scientific process, yes, but the questions matter. So I'm just curious what you think about that.
Well, I agree. The questions matter. The questions are the central issue that we have all freedom to choose. And after we choose a question, our degrees of freedom shrink. And we have to follow community procedures and methods and all this stuff in science, no? And the theory and the hypotheses that are relevant and whatever. But the question we can choose. And the question depends on many things. And I understand what you're saying, that if we don't want to change the world, but there's people that don't care for changing the world. They exist, no? So.
And I would add that sometimes the questions behind the research is how to increase the profits of the 6 big multinationals that dominate the food system. So how can I make this, for example, this is a difficult subject, but how can I make a plant, a transgenic plant that needs glyphosate so I sell the product, I sell glyphosate, I sell the seed, the patented seed. So the scientists there with their very, very good science, I don't say not, but the questions are sometimes to get more profits, not for well-being of biodiversity, not as well-being for humans, but for profits, accumulating capital, accumulating power, for what? For more submission of people. So yeah, I think that is the problem.
I agree with that, but we as agroecologists have to ask the questions relative to what we are interested and think we should do.
And depending on the financing?
Yeah, it depends on financing. You cannot do whatever you want. It's very complex. It's a complex procedure because I had questions for myself that I could never get financing. What can you do?
I want to tell you a very short tale. Once I was invited for a big transnational project, yes? And the person, I won't say names but from Germany and all that, said okay, it is financed by this big corporation, but don't worry. We could ask anything about pollination, pollinators in coffee, blah, 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 blah. Let's go into this. And then I made a meeting with my research group, and they said, that? No. And we reject. No, we are not going to engage in this project because they are the financiers. And I said, no, there is a goodwill, whatever. And then I had to say, no, we are not going to engage in this project. So afterwards, that person that proposed me that said, oh, yes, when I was going to sign the contract, if the results were not good for the big corporation, we could not publish. There was a clausula, disclaimer. So that person did not do it. And we did not, even, of course. But because of ethical principles or things like that how can you say, no, you cannot publish if the results don't favor our multinational interest, company interest.
Yeah, our objectives.
Objectives.
The colleague in blue, please.
Good morning. My name is Pascal Boeks. I'm from Ghent University in Belgium. I have a question. I will ask the question first, and then afterwards I will justify a little bit why I asked the question. Yeah. So the question is how you think you can bring agroecology at scale, yeah, without mineral fertilizers. Yeah. So this is maybe a sensitive question. Yeah. I will explain why I asked the question. I worked for 25 years in Central Africa, and in 2050, the population in so-called sub-Saharan Africa will double, meaning an increase from 1 million currently to 2 million in 2050. Yeah? Of these 2 million people, 400 will live in absolute, 400 million will live in absolute poverty. Yeah? Now, they feed themselves mostly with slash and burn agriculture. Yeah? This is causing like 85% of the disturbance of tropical forests. Yeah? So if we continue like this, population will double. Slash and burn agriculture, none of these intact forests will exist in 2050 or 2100. Yeah? So we urgently need to sustainably increase agricultural productivity. I never heard the word yields in all the things that have been mentioned here this morning. Yeah? Agriculture serves to help people with food security. Yeah? So, and I'll stop almost. So the average yield of the shifting agriculture for maize in sub-Saharan Africa is 1.5 tons per hectare. Yeah? You can have an optimal potential of 15 tons per hectare. Yeah? That's a factor of 10. Yeah? I don't say we need to introduce this large-scale agriculture and achieving at 15 tons per hectare. But at least we could try to triple the yields and to go to 5 tons per hectare. Yeah? But tripling these yields without adding nutrients is impossible. Yeah? So I go back to my question. How you think you can bring agricultural concepts at scale, yeah, to feed an additional 1 million people in Central Africa with or without allowing mineral fertilizers?
Thank you. This is a very good question because we have learned from the traditional approach of scientific, agronomy, whatever, everything, and the transition to agroecology cannot be in one step. We need to reinvigorize the soils, and we cannot be like dogmatic to apply the agroecological principles from the first beginning. We need a transition, and you are right. But this transition must be in all the aspects because there is a big inequity in Africa also. And the source is true sometimes. We cannot say, I know it is a sin. You cannot, this is a sin to use any agrochemical. Maybe we need to understand better. But there are organic ways and start to recycle organic matter more and more because tropical regions need the basis of all conservation, soil conservation, etc., is recycling. That is what life has learned. We have to learn from life that matter is recycled, energy flows, no? So we need to understand that, but for the long term. And I understand there is an urgent need. So the transition, we cannot be so dogmatic to say, no, we not need to change now, very, very sharply.
Well, I do agree. Mexico has the same problem. We have a lot of soils that are extremely degraded. And the recommendations, as I stated, are just ridiculous regarding the amount of nitrogen that's being recommended to be used with all these alternative practices, no? So it's a difficult issue because it's easy to imagine you incorporate organic matter, but How much? We are talking about 3 to 10 tons per hectare. Where do you do it? How do you move it? How is it going to be cheap? How do you move it to the end of the roads? No, it's very expensive, and and doing green manures is a possibility. I believe that it's a way, but you have to solve problems. You have to do the science for it to actually work out. No. So it's easier saying than doing. No, it's very easy to say recycle, just use manure or use compost. Yeah, I know I can do that, but the scale of the problem is such that how do we do it? No?
That is my point. You can mix different techniques and practices to solve the problem.
That's not what the people promoting agroecology are doing, because the scientists promoting agroecology are not saying it clearly.
Are not saying it?
Yeah, that's my opinion.
Okay. We are running out of time, but probably the last question. Very, very quick, please.
Okay, I really like the debate, and I have a more like after agriculture products question. It's not related to the agricultural process itself. And in Brazil, when we talk about agroecology, we talk about more native seasonal products, and people are not used to these native products because we are used to like other products that are not native to Brazil. And the question is, how can we change people's taste for this food? If this food is being produced, like seasonal native food is produced, are people going to buy it? And how we're going to incentive people to buy these native products that we are not used to?
I would say it's a very difficult issue because I started my career working with minor plants. And a little while after I found out that I didn't want to eat some of those, no? They were difficult for me. And then we have actually measured this idea that there's a lot of produce coming from the agroecological system of indigenous people. And we have measured it, and it's not that high. And what people want to eat every day is the same thing. They want to eat maize, they want to eat beans, they want to eat eggs, and sometimes chicken. You know? You have other things available, but they are not used as much as people imagine they are. For example, quelites, they are abundant in the milpa. But how many days a week do you eat quelites? Not even in the countryside, people do it 3 times a week. They do it 1 time a week, or maybe each 2 weeks. But nobody eats quelites every day in this country, even if they're free and abundant. So it depends. Changing eating habits, it's very, very, very difficult. And you can see it worldwide. Why do people in Asia eat preferably rice? Because rice is from there, and they've been trained all their lives to eat rice. We eat maize because we eat maize all our lives. And that's very difficult to change. And I understand what you're saying, but it's not so, it's easier to imagine, again, than to actually work it out.
I want to say something. One of the principles in agroecology, of course, is hopefully to eat local. The most local you can eat, better, because less of fossil fuels and etc. But also, what historically we humans have eaten 3,000 kinds of items. Now, 15 items are dominating 95% of what we eat. What is going on? This is part of the consequences of industrial agriculture. Our culture, because culture, so you go to the supermarket and you see like 10 different colors of different products, but all of them the same. The same maize, the same rice, the same, well, whatever. So culture is very linked, and we learn from we are very young people what is good and what is not. So you are not born with your tastes. you learn your tastes. If with you are raising kids with many flavors, and in terms of nutrition, if you have 10 different potatoes with different colors, you tend to get better nutrition. So for many aspects, the diverse food is much better than a only one kind of food for all the. But it's a cultural question. So because we change to be homogeneous in the way we feed, we can rechange to be more diverse in what we eat. But I think trade cannot be stopped. Trade, we like rice, we like things from other places. So I think that it's good, some kind of trade, but we can change a little bit the gears. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you very much. We have to close the debate, and I'm going to ask you to give a final sentence, because we don't have time to
for the final conclusion.
You want to start?
Sorry. My final sentence is that I should be a scientist, but I believe in agroecology, its approach, and I think it's a way to have hope in this moment for the world, for the human well-being and biodiversity well-being.
Thank you, Inge. All right, Hugo.
Well, I also believe that we have to work on the agroecological side, but I also, as I stated, I think we have to do the work and not only the discourse. And let's hope for the best.
Okay, thank you, Hugo. Because because I'm the moderator, I want to read something that I prepared. Agroecology presents a promising approach for promoting both social well-being and environmental conservation in tropics, but it's not a universal solution. Its effectiveness depends on local ecological and socioeconomic contexts, and while its principles are appealing, such as enhancing biodiversity and empowering communities, they must be supported by robust scientific evidence and transformed into real and working agricultural practices and techniques. This debate reminds us also that agriculture is not only a technical matter, but also a question of values and priorities. Agroecology brings attention to sustainability, equity, and cultural relevance. Through these benefits might come with trade-offs, particularly in terms of yield or scalability. The way forward may lie in developing hybrid adaptive models that combine agroecological principles with innovations from conventional agriculture. Ultimately, for agroecology to truly contribute to conservation and well-being in the tropics, supportive policies, inclusive governance, and investment in local capacities will be essential. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Quetzal.
Well, we have a final message. As part of ATBC ongoing commitment to sustainability and climate responsibility, ATBC 2025 is proud to support the Comité de Recursos Naturales de la Chinantla Alta, Corenchi, as this year's official carbon mitigation project. Your contribution will directly support the ongoing conservation efforts of Corenchi and help offset of carbon footprint associated with this conference. You can scan the codes and go to the link to make your contribution. Thank you. Ay, muchas gracias. Gracias, gracias.